While Cosimo de Medici was a great patron of the arts, he also used his money to restore 4 dilapidated monasteries, including the church and convent San Marco in 1437. For Cosimo, restoring monasteries was a sign of respect and devotion to God. He commissioned Michelozzo to design the convent, and one of the Dominican friars, Fra Angelico, to do the artwork. Some fun facts for you. This portrait of Michelozzo was painted by Fra Angelico. So I think we can safely say this was not only a collaboration, but a friendship. Furthermore, you might notice if you are researching the Medici family that Michelozzo comes up a lot. Michelozzo was a favoured Medici architect and was extensively employed by Cosimo de Medici. He was a pupil of Lorenzo Ghiberti in his early years, who you might remember from my video last week about Florence Cathedral. And side note, it's these little tidbits of information that I love learning about, because it really demonstrates how these are not just artists acting alone, but they all knew each other, worked together, and often for the same patrons. What's fascinating about the early and high Renaissance is the volume of creativity in one place. In this instance, it's Florence, where there are these whole groups of artists learning from each other in each other's studios as pupils and masters. And then this continues when the high Renaissance occurs in Rome. Moving on to the actual church. The interior we see today was designed after Cosimo's lifetime by the architect Giambologna in the 16th century, and over the years it has been restored by many different artists. However, in the 1400s, when Cosimo was actually commissioning the renovation of the church, he employed Fra Angelico to paint the crucifix on the high altar. It is said that he was called Angelico due to the nature of his art, and that every time he painted the crucifixion, he would cry. It is important to remember that Fra Angelico was a Dominican friar, and so the experience of restoring a monastery must have held a huge reverence for him. The convent. This part of San Marco was designed by Michelozzo, whom some of you will remember was also the architect of the Medici Palace. As well as the convent, he also designed the cloisters and the library of San Marco. In the main section of the convent, Fra Angelico painted a second altarpiece. This altarpiece depicts a seated Madonna and Christ surrounded by a gathering of saints. They are seated on a huge throne against a curtain decorated with pomegranates. You might see pomegranates occur quite often in Christian iconography. The seed of the pomegranate the infant is holding signifies that Christ will receive resurrection through rebirth, just as the seed will cause the birth of a new plant. The pomegranate is also an ancient fertility symbol, and this is why the pomegranate is often shown. The Madonna and Christ are set perfectly in front of a niche, and a huge halo surrounds the Madonna's head. Immediately at their feet, St. Cosmas and St. Damian kneel. They are both named saints for the Medici family, and as such, on the left, St. Cosmas has been identified as a portrait of Cosimo de Medici, and this was a sign of respect from Fra Angelico. Here, Fra Angelico has applied perspective to draw the viewer's eye to the focus of the painting, the Madonna and Child. The way in which the two patron saints, St. Cosmas and St. Damian, are situated at the two far corners of the steps means that our eye line is drawn up the steps to the Madonna. Although the painting is full of figures and features a beautiful backdrop of the countryside, Fra Angelico has been economical enough to achieve a lovely, huge space in the front of the painting. This gives the viewer a sense that there is nothing in between the Virgin Child and yourself. And this is really important in Christianity, as Madonna is often seen as an intercessor between the believer and God. The Dominican friars had their own cells in the cloisters of San Marco. Cosimo de Medici himself had his own cell made up as a place of peace he could go to. In each cell, Fra Angelico was commissioned to paint the most beautiful artworks. This Annunciation is one of many Fra Angelico painted, but is arguably the fresco he is most famous for. The fresco depicts the moment the Archangel Gabriel tells the Virgin Mary she is pregnant with Christ. Similar to Fra Filippo Lippi's Annunciation and other versions of this moment in the Bible, the Virgin has an expression of shock that she is not worthy. She has her arms wrapped around her stomach, almost as if she cannot believe that God's child could be within her. The setting is very similar to the San Marco cloisters, which would have been on purpose, as Fra Angelico loved a trompe-l'oeil effect. A trompe-l'oeil effect is when a painting echoes its surroundings so much so that it feels like an extension of the room. In this case, it feels like one of the friar's cells, which it is. Interestingly, Fra Angelico has also attempted at a continuation from the altarpiece. In fact, the Virgin here wears dark blue and the angel wears red. This is the same distinction as he used in the altarpiece. Michelozzo designed the library as a very long room, complete with 2 colonnades that stretch all the way through the room. This succeeds in creating an aisle, dividing the room into 2 sections, both with windows which fill the rooms with light, where the friars would have worked on illuminating the manuscripts and studying religious material, and so on a purely practical level it needed a lot of light. The library still today has an incredibly impressive collection of illuminated choir books. Nowadays it also specialises in philosophy and theology books as well. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, I will leave a link to the accompanying blog post in the description box below, where the whole video is transcribed on my blog. If you have any suggestions or requests for future videos, I would absolutely love to film them. So please just let me know if you'd like to see anything below. Thanks again. Bye.